Good morning, Rabbi Isai, or good Motzei Tisha B'Av, Rabbi Isai. Lili Nishmasi Mimirosi Rusbas Mordechai. We're sitting here in Miami in a bedroom. Erev Shabbos, Erev Tisha B'Av, and this is shir number 4 out of 4. I have to say, Groisi Shkoyach to Mark Ashkenazi, sitting here doing this shir with me. He's a Muncie, and it's about an hour before Shabbos. So today we are going to do an abridged version, or a shorter. I'm not going to say abridged. It's a shorter version. We're going to take out a lot of stuff, and I'm going to go on a pace. Be'ezer Hashem. So I hope you had an unbelievable Tisha B'Av, a meaningful Tisha B'Av, and we should see Mashiach b'mehera. Just a few, Chas v'Shalom, not to skip the whole email section completely. Givaldic email from Yosef Ezra. I just got it literally maybe 2 hours ago. Dear Rebbe, we were just learning about the kosher grasshoppers. My father, Rabbi Cheskel Ezra, wrote a whole presentation on it many years ago, and I think you'd really enjoy it. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Rebbe for changing my life. I was one of your classic ADHD kids who didn't fit in classic yeshiva after getting thrown out of multiple yeshivas and completely leaving the path of Torah, getting into too much trouble and struggling with addiction. I slowly found my way back. Baruch Hashem, wow. However, Torah learning was still something I couldn't connect to. However, thanks to MDY, I have finished 2 Mesechtas for the first time in 20 years. So thank you for saving my life in this world and in the next. Nachamal, thank you for saving my life in this world and in the next. Please enjoy this presentation by Rabbi Yechiel Ezra. Your forever grateful student, Yosef Ezra. Wow. Hi Rebelli, joked today about waiting to hear from the guy who learned Daf Yomi in the bathroom before he became frum. How about the guy who learned Daf Yomi on Tisha B'Av before he became frum? Love your share. Keep up the good work. P.S. No joke, I actually do suffer from Daf Yomi withdrawal systems every Tisha B'Av morning. Kol Tov Chaim Shor. I know a lot of people, they told me it's like the first, now they chap why you're not allowed to learn Torah on Tisha B'Av. It's a struggle. That happens to be a struggle. The bathroom is one thing. You know, it's weird. I have to mention this because I was preparing shir today. Obviously, more than one shir, but at one point, it doesn't happen to me often. So it's not gaiva. I went to the bathroom in the middle of preparing, and while I was there, I'm thinking in what I'm preparing, and I literally had to fight myself not to think in learning. It doesn't happen often. But this time it happened. Mamish today, as he's talking about it, he just reminded me. I had to get that thought out of there. Think about something else. Aviad Black, Geschmacke kid. Oh, look at this. He's the one that presented this to me, his mom. We are moved by your recent presentation where you highlighted the many dedicated groups across Israel who join in the study of your Torah classes daily. This not only shows the reach and impact of your teaching beyond your MDY Center Ramat Bet Shemesh and online forums, but also underscores your role in uniting Jewish communities around the world in the pursuit of knowledge and spiritual growth. Your innovative and forward-thinking approach to teaching has enriched countless lives and strengthened the bonds between Israel and our friends and allies abroad. It's a privilege to present you with this letter of commendation as a token of appreciation. Thank you. Anyways, here's the kid, Aviad Black, giving Thursday night to Miami Shir some extra geschmack. He's a geschmack kid, very, very smart kid, very bright. Gewaldig. And a Kiruv Shabbos at Villa Altol, I can't pronounce that, in Belgium. Dr. Shlomo Ham of Antwerpen, we saw yesterday learning with his son in the car, and they wait for the wife and mother, learning that with some Yidden from Germany, trying to make an impact. Also, with the owner of the hotel, Benzi Shapiro, learns with the Hebrew Shir, Gewaldig. The owner of the hotel does MDY. Oh, and that brings us to the sponsors. Masechta sponsor David Salomon, dedicated memory of Avi Moir Reb Shmuel Baruch Ben Reb Chaim Tzvi Doiv Zechron Levracha. Anonymous, Hatzlacha Baruch Yisrael Gashmis and Schus Achinu Bnei Yisrael. Loyal Leinu. Today, there was news about my favorite animal, the leopard, attacked a Jew in the biblical zoo in Yerushalayim and actually killed him. Mamish today. Anonymous, may our learning be a shield of protection and a source of unity and blessing for Am Yisrael. Joel Gedalius, Lili Nishmas, my father, Jack Gedalius. Monthly sponsors TCS Israel, powered by Talking Save Anonymous, Refuah Shleima L'Chol D'Leo Bas Bracha. Weekly sponsors Yomi Avodah Refuah Shleima L'Avrom Ben Eli Sheva Pnina. MDYR monthly Refuah Shleima for Yonatan Eitam Ben Sheva Bracha, Refuah Shleima Mordechai Ben Esther, Refuah Sayeled Daniel Zev Ben Ayelet Esther. Rabbi Isai, here we go. We're holding 8 lines down from the top. Mem Vav Amud Aleph. We're not even going to go all the way to the end of Amud Beis. It's a shorter daf so that it gives people the opportunity to catch up and do the dapim that they missed on Tisha B'Av. Tani Tana Kameder of Sheshes. This is a continuation of what we learned yesterday. Hagoyim ha'ivdim esaharim vesagvois. A goy who worships Avodah Zarah, the mountain and the hill, Hey mutarim, as we said yesterday, the mountains do not become asur. V'oivdeim b'sayev, yet the goy himself is chayiv misa. What kind of misa do you give a goy? He dies by the sword. Interesting halacha, as Rashi pointed out, even more so with the animal. The goy worshipping gets the misa, even though it's not really worshipped, even though he didn't make a change in the mountain itself. Let me ask you a question. This mountain that's worshipped and nothing happens to it, can you use parts of the mountain for the Beis HaMikdash? To build the Beis HaMikdash, to build the Mizbeach, let's say. So you're going to say, why not? Nothing happened. The Gemara has a question all in the bottom of the Samad, whether or not it has an effect. There's a certain sensitivity, so to speak, when it comes to Kedusha, when it comes to Hegdish, that maybe it's no good. And if somebody worships the seeds and the vegetables that are connected to the ground, so we're talking about somebody planted these, and later on he decided to worship it. The vegetables themselves become asur, the added part of it, and those who worship it get the death penalty. That is exactly what we learned yesterday. Here it is. If you look on the side, that according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, it's referring to a tree that was planted without intent for Avodah Zarah, and later on he worshipped Avodah Zarah. That's what the Gemara is going to ask. Who told you this great secret? So the Gemara, this is Rabbi Yossi. If you planted something and later on you worshipped it, like in the picture, take a look at the picture. Here he planted it, and then he worships it. Also, it becomes awesome. Ask the Gemara, why do you have to go to such great lengths and say that's talking about a funny case where he planted it not for Avodah Zarah, but later on he did Avodah Zarah? I have a much better idea. He planted it for Avodah Zarah. What do I gain by that? The Rabbanan. And then it's not, you don't have to go according to one shita in Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. This goes according to Rabbanan as well. If somebody plants a vegetable, l'shem Avodah Zarah, it's asur, and he gets the death penalty. Says the Gemara, no, that I would never think about something like that. Why? What does it say? It says the guy that worships the mountain and the hill, and the guy that worships vegetables. It's one sentence. It's one seif in the halacha. So the vegetables have to be similar to the mountain. Just like a mountain, you didn't plant the mountain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu planted it. It wasn't planted for Avodah Zarah. It was planted originally for not Avodah Zarah. Brand new sugya. Itmar. Avnei har shenidaldalu b'nei Reb Chia v'Reb Yochanan. There's machlokes between the sons of Reb Chia and Reb Yochanan about a mountain who stone dislodged from the mountain and rolled down the mountain. So we were just now in Austria. Why not mention it again? Wherever you go over there, especially on the highways or when you go on certain hikes and waterfalls, you'll see like these massive nets made out of metal that catch falling stones. It's a common thing over there. In fact, we were on one of these bridges overlooking this waterfall, and I pointed out to the guys, you see the railing is all dented, and like, who dented it? What, somebody came with a hammer and dented it? And you realize that there's stones falling all the time, and they dent these things. In fact, we were looking at some of these nets, and on the bottom of the net, you see it actually caught these massive boulders that could just come off the road. Happens here in America also, everywhere. So what happens when a stone dislodges itself and falls down and somebody worships that stone? The Gemara is going to explain what the suffix is. So we have a machlokes, we don't know who says what, and we won't know. The Gemara tries to say maybe Reb Chia's kid said this, but at the end, we don't know. The sons of Reb Chia, who are they? Yehuda and Chizkiah. Just as a note, as a random information. Reb Chia's sons, Yehuda and Chizkiah, were twins, but they were born, believe it or not, 3 months apart. One was in the 7th month, one was in the 9th month. The other thing is that Reb Chia's twins had sister twins. Stop, random piece of information. And they argued with Rabbi Yochanan. If you worship a stone that dislodged from a mountain, the stone becomes asur. It becomes mutar. It's mutar. My time demand on mutaris. Why would it be mutar? Says Gemara kahar because it's like a mountain. Mahar shem mutar. Just like a mountain has no human intervention. It was created by Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore it's mutar. A human being has no intervention with this boulder that's dislodged from the mountain and rolled down the mountain. Oh, which I got to show you. Hold on. You know what? Let me show you this also because I didn't show it yesterday at the end of the sugya. It's when you have a Avodah Zarah that has a name, he thinks he's all high, you should make him low. I guess he's insulted because you called him a name. There's a boulder that dislodged. He worshipped it. So, excuse me. Says Gemara, okay, so since this boulder had no human intervention, so it should be mutar. You can't put Avodah Zarah, Avodah Zarah doesn't cling to it. Says the Gemara, okay, so we could go through it in a chart, very, very simple. The question on the top is Avnei Harshin Daldalu, a stone that fell down. So it's like a mountain that has no human intervention. So the Gemara says, but wait a minute, a mountain is connected to the ground, but this boulder is not. So that's a problem. Says the Gemara, I could prove it from an animal. So now I have two things going here. I have a mountain and an animal, that's all we have. That what? That a mountain is connected, fine. That's like a reason why I shouldn't learn a boulder from it. But on the other hand, the boulder is similar to an animal. And if I worship an animal, the animal remains mutter. I'm allowed to use the animal. Somebody worship the animal doesn't become asur. So when I said, wait a minute, but there's something special about an animal. An animal is a living thing. It's a living organism. And for that, I'll prove from a mountain is not a living thing. So don't tell me that the reason why an animal is mutter is because it's living. A mountain is living and it's also mutter. But a mountain is connected. So an animal is not connected, but an animal is alive, but a mountain is not alive, and you go in a circle in a circle. What is that called? It's called the tzad hashava. You keep on going in a circle, and it's a catch-22. You never stop. But the bottom line is, if I take these two items, there are only two items, a mountain and an animal. If I take these two items, I come up with one common denominator. The common denominator from these two things is, let's see it inside. It's alive. The mountain will prove it's not alive. The chazar din, it keeps it going in a circle. Each one has a pro and a con. But the one thing in common, the common denominator between the two of them, there's no human intervention. A human being did not create an animal. A human being did not create the mountain. And they're both mutar. Af, and therefore I can learn from this. Kol shein like a stone, there's no human intervention. Mutar. So the stone, even though you worshipped it, it should remain mutar. So the Gemara, wait a minute. A mountain And an animal, nothing changed in the way they were created. But this stone, something changed. Before it was part of a mountain, now it's not. Ella, hold on, let me just push one more button here. Here, the Gemara says that there's no human intervention. But now the Gemara says, but wait a minute. The mountain and the animal have something in common that the rolling stone doesn't have. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That the nishtana mibriyasan, something changed in the way they were created. Whereas what's the better word? Not a rolling stone. A dislodged stone has something that is different. It used to be part of a mountain, and now it's no longer part of the mountain. So the Gemara says, you're right. Okay, you know what? Let's do this. We'll do the same thing. I took what Yoshi did and I just added imum, behema imum. It's an animal. We'll learn it from an animal with a mum. It was born complete, 100% perfect, like Hashem creates an animal, and then something happened to it. It lost its leg. It's now about mum. Yet, if you worship it, the Avodah Zarah does not stick to it. So it's like a mountain that Avodah Zarah doesn't stick to it. So I can learn from those two things. I can learn the dislodged stone. It's the same thing. I'm just going to talk about an animal that has a chisar into it a mum. The two of them together in a mountain. Vinami, or you want two other things, a complete animal without a mum. But the tree is a dried out tree. Oh, so that's the reason to say that it's mutter. I can learn this stone that fell off the mountain from a mountain and an animal that has a mum. And what's the svar to say that it's also? The Torah tells us that we should hate Avodah Zarah. It should be disgusting in our eyes. It should be mias, as they say in Yiddish. It should be disgusting to us. That's a big chiddush in Avodah Zarah. Even though I just showed you a whole circle that Yoshi did, I could learn it out from a catch-22 that it should be mutter. Nevertheless, I'm going to say it's asur because of this pasuk that Avodah Zarah should always be disgusting in your eyes, which teaches us that even if you have a reason to say that it's mutter, it's asur. Lo tasya. So check out this Rashi over here. Rashi says, it says that pasuk by Avodah Zarah. Don't learn it for heter. The crow and mashma. And Rashi goes on to say, I just highlighted. If you could darshan something in Avodah Zarah, only do a drasha for the bad. And to make it also, the only time I can say something that's mutter in Avodah Zarah, says Rashi, listen to this. It's only when the Torah says that this is mutter, straight out, not through a drasha, because through a drasha, I have to always learn it for the Isser Shabbai. Because it says, Shakis tishaksenu, v'sayv tisavenu. The Gemara just goes on a little bit off topic here, just to say, not off topic, but in the topic. Who said it? Maybe I could prove that this time the Rebbe Chia, the Shar, maybe it's Yehuda and Chizkiah said that this stone is the one that they're the ones that said it. Smutter and Rebbe Yochanan is the one that said it's asur. Why? The boy Chizkiah, Zokaf Beitzo l'shtach v'isla mau. So if somebody took an egg and stood it up, an egg typically lays flat. This one you're able to stand it up. Whatever you did, it's in some sand. I don't know what. You dented the bottom of it. You stood it up. Now the Gemara understands that an egg is similar to a boulder that fell off a mountain. Why? Because a chicken, you can't make a chicken asur through Avodah Zarah. Let's say somebody worshipped the chicken. Chicken is a balchai. It doesn't become asur. Yet the egg is like a boulder that was attached to the mountain. The egg is attached to the chicken, and it came out of the chicken. And somebody took this egg and put it on the side to bow to it. Mao. What's the halach? So this is Chizkiah. In other words, Yehuda and Chizkiah. So Chizkiah said, he asked this question. The question was, if you put this egg on the side to bow to it, and he bowed to it. So when he took the egg from a laying position and stood it up, perhaps that's an act. That's human intervention. It's tfisa sidei adam. But if he just bowed to an egg that came out of a chicken, that has no human intervention. Not. So mainly you see from here that Chizkiah wants to say that it's motor. Shma min b'nei Reb Chia sharu, the sharu. So the Gemara loy lo melach b'nei Reb Chia das. No, it happens to be that they'll say no. We could be dark and say no. No raya. They'll say then in such a case is also. And if you bow to it, even though you didn't lift it up, it's also not motor. What happened was, first of all, he wanted to worship it, but he didn't. So what's going on with the man? According to which mandoma is this? Either mandoma Avodah Zarah Yisrael asur miyad. This is machlokes. When a Jew acquires Avodah Zarah, does it become asur right away, or he has to worship it? So if you say that he has to worship it right away, so this is a case, it should be asur. And if you say that you have to worship it, at the end of the day he didn't worship it, so why should it be asur? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why it's asur. The Jew didn't worship it, but a guy stepped in and he worshipped it. He put it in position, he stood it up to worship it. And then a random guy came and worshipped it. Now, think about it for a second. If a guy comes to my egg and worships it, am I allowed to eat the egg? Yes, because that guy has no right to worship my egg and to ask for my egg. David Black asked yesterday, the kid, right? He asked, what about the Yain Nesach? Yain Nesach is different. The Kroivus, we're not going to go into it. But if I say that this egg, here, I'm standing my egg up. I'm taking it from a laying position and I'm standing it up. In other words, I'm getting it ready to do Avodah Zarah. Then I'm allowing the random guy to come by and worship it and make my egg asur. If it wasn't in the position, then he can't. But since I put it in the position, then he could. So now we have the same idea. Person takes a brick and he stands it up. It was laying down, he stands it up. L'chayr is the same idea as an egg. The Gemara says, well, there's a little bit of an afkimina. And a guy came along, even though it's not his, asura. The guy is like a shliach. It becomes asur. They come in Baile, and they ask the question, Lebeino who the minkar is a kivasa? Is it because, look, when you have the brick is very narrow on the side and long this way, right? So if it's this, when it's laying down like this, then it's very noticeable when you stand it up. It's super noticeable, like in this picture. But if you take an egg and you stand it up, it's not that noticeable. I just took this picture, I copied it, and I put it sideways. It's hard. It's not that noticeable, right? The difference in height between the width and the height is not that much. Maybe there's no difference. Teiku. It's one of these questions we don't have an answer to. Boy Rami Bar Chama. So it goes like this. There's an idea called Nevad. Nevad. What does Nevad mean? If I have an animal, which we just discussed, I have an animal, I have a sheep, and I worship the sheep Avodah Zarah. Nothing happens to the sheep. Almost nothing happens to the sheep. I'm allowed to eat the sheep, I'm allowed to sell the sheep, I'm allowed to have... But there's one thing that happens. It's called Nevad. It was worshipped. It's a Nevad. Somebody did Avodah to it, Avodah Zarah. And therefore, you cannot bring it as a carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash is super sensitive to these things. And it becomes asur. You're right, nothing happened. Now, the question is as follows. When somebody worships a mountain, I mentioned it all the way in the beginning of the shir. Somebody worships a mountain. We said nothing happens to the mountain. You can't make a mountain Avodah Zarah. But am I allowed to quarry? What's the word? Chop some stones from it and create a mizbeach in the Beis Hamikdash from those stones. Maybe the Beis Hamikdash has super sensitivity to it. I'll give you an example. Let's say you go to India. And in India, you know that the cows there are Kodesh Kodashim. They hold that the cows are Avodah Zarah. You're not allowed to touch them. They walk around in the streets. You're not allowed to bother them. You're not allowed to beep at them. They worship these cows. Are you allowed to drink the milk of such a cow? The answer is yes. Why? Because the worshipping of the Avodah Zarah doesn't take effect on the animal. But are you allowed to bring this animal as a korban in the Beis Hamikdash? No. Why? Because it's nevad. So it says the Gemara, if you worship the mountain, Avana of Mal Mizbeach, can I use those stones for the Mizbeach? Daf Memvav Beis. What's the question? Yesh nevad b'mechubar. Here, another example. What about if somebody worships wheat that is attached to the ground? Do we say yesh nevad b'mechubar, it's a gavaya? So you're not, maybe perhaps you can't bring this wheat on the Mizbeach as a karba mincha. Can't make flour out of it. Or perhaps there's no such thing as being worshipped when it comes to something that's attached to the ground when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash. Now here's the interesting question. These stones that I quarry out of the mountain are different than wheat. Why? Because the wheat you want to use as a carbon itself. It's the mincha itself. These stones are one step removed. You want to make a mizbeach, that on the mizbeach you're going to bring a carbon. But what about machshire carbon? This is just a step away from the carbon. It's to allow the carbon to be brought on the mizbeach. Ki carbon damu, is it similar to the carbon itself? Oy loy. Says the turning of the daf by Adar Global MDY. Wow, Taka, big pella. You're talking about maybe 40 minutes before Shabbos, and there are, how many people do you say? 30 people on YouTube or something, he said. At least 30, I read. Okay? Adar Global, MDY is enjoying the benefit of Maestros of Adar, as MDY clients create more Maestros. Anonymous, Yachad Gila Bati Tamar Ephraim, Cham Yitzchok Ben Shmuel Avigdor, and Anonymous says Chos Fatzloch and Ruchnis and Gashmias. Says the Gemara. Amar Rava. Pay attention here. There's a beautiful Kavachomer from Rava. Very, very nice. And if you don't like it that much, that's okay, because in 2 minutes we'll be on to the next sugya. So Rava says like this, Kavachomer. I can prove to you whether or not something that's mechuber is osir in the Beis Hamikdash. Why? So there's something called esnan zoina. That is, somebody paid a zoina for her services. That is not allowed to be brought as a carbon. Somebody gave the Zaina a sheep. She can't bring it as a carbon, but she could use it for herself. So says Rava as follows. She's permitted to use the sheep for herself. Also, nevertheless, if somebody pays her with, let's say, a tree that's attached to the ground, she cannot give that tree to the Beis Hamikdash to build the Beis Hamikdash. Fact is a pasuk. It just keeps on going. Beis Hashem Elikecha. L'chayr, the pasuk is saying they shouldn't bring it for the Beis Hamikdash. I want to point out here before we go on. This is the contention that Rav Huna has with Rava. Why? Because it doesn't say anywhere that mechuber is aser. Rava made that up. Rava figured that since the Torah doesn't make a distinction between attached and detached, so there's no difference. And Memeli has a kavachomer, but says Rav Huna, who told you? Maybe attached is mutter. So let's do it again. If a detached animal is mutter to a human being, yet, when it comes to the Zaina, to Esnan Zaina, yet the mechubar, the connected, is asur for the Beis Hamikdash, it doesn't matter whether it is connected or not connected. You hear this niggin that I'm doing? The Gemara says The Gemara calls, because there's a niggin like this, Rashi points out it's called a question. Because it's like a lashon of a question, but it's not a question. It's a kavachayim. But anyway, so when it comes to worshipping Avodah Zarah, that is asur when you have a disconnect, it's something that's not detached. It's asur for a human being if somebody worships a detached thing. The owner becomes asur to it. It takes a piece of wood, it makes it a Avodah Zarah. It becomes asur. Doesn't matter whether it's attached or detached. Sorry. The detached becomes also the hedyot, and din gavaya. Certainly, says Rava, if by Esnan Zayna attached is also to the Beis Hamikdash, so certainly when it comes to Avodah Zarah, attached is also to the Beis Hamikdash. Omar Lei, Omar Ravuna b'Reder Yishua Rava, says Ravuna to Rava, who told you? Your whole kavachaymer is on the premise that mechuber is aser. And you know what? I'm going to tell you mechuber is mutter, and I'm going to have the reverse kavachaymer. Oh, when it comes to Avodah Zarah, detached is aser. Yet mechuber, I say the opposite of you. Mechuber is mutter. Shenemar Elohim, Eloharim, Eloharim, Elohim. The mountain, which is mechuber, cannot be a god. Doesn't matter whether it's the individual or the Beis Hamikdash. See, I say that mechuber is mutter in the Beis Hamikdash. You can make him mizbeach out of it. As not shemudim b'talish lahedyon, and it did shemudim mechuber legavaya. So I'm going to take it a step further. Says Ravona, the money she made for services, which is mutter. She's allowed to use the sheep for herself, and certainly she's allowed to take a tree that she got for her services and give it to the Beis Hamikdash. What about this pasuk that says Mefurish, you shouldn't give to the Hashem's house? No. That's for a different halacha. It says, what if the Zayna received, for her services, she received a para aduma, a $2 million cow. She received her, stop, let's say. The halacha is she could donate it to the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because we learn from the pasuk, Beis Hashem Elikecha, it's only something that goes into the Beis Hamikdash that's aser. But a para aduma, check it out, like this picture. What do you do a para aduma? You do it on Har HaZeisim, facing the Beis Hamikdash, but it's outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Where does the shechita take place? Outside, right there, on that spot. So Amela, that is mutter for her to donate to the Beis Hamikdash. How do I know it? From these words, Beis Hashem Elikecha. It's not coming to say the opposite. You thought Beis Hashem Elikecha comes to say that she cannot donate to the Beis Hamikdash. The opposite. It's coming to say you could donate a para aduma. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. And Chacham say no. What she's not allowed to donate, Beis Hashem Elikecha, she cannot donate, is a plate. A crushed, like a flat plate of gold that they used to put on the wall, that they used to decorate the wall, like their wallpaper was made out of gold in the Beis Hamikdash. That she cannot donate. So Rava says like this: I have a kavachaymer to be machmer and say, do not use these stones for the Beis Hamikdash. You have a kavachaymer to say, to be mekel, that you could use these stones for the Beis Hamikdash. Who wins? I win, says Rava. You go with the chumrah, not with the kula. Rava tells Ravuna, I know kamino l'chumra. V'atamers l'kula. I do chumra, you do kula. Kula v'chumra, l'chumra m'parchinan. When you have a kula and a chumra, you should go with the chumra. You should ask the question. So Rashi says it doesn't mean ask the question. Rashi says parchinan means daininon. It means you do a kavachaymer. The chol din kavachaymer, says Rashi, korle pircha. Every kavachaymer is called a pircha mishum de beloshen teimasi. It's said in a song of a question. Fine. Popular Rava. You just established that if you could say a kavachaymer l'chumra, you could say a kavachaymer l'kula, you should go l'chumra. It's not true. Rebbe Kiva, do we have anybody greater than Rebbe Kiva? The greatest Tana that ever lived. He says that if you have a kavachaymer l'chumra and a kavachaymer l'kula, you go l'kula. And the Gemara is going to answer, I'm just telling you the end of the sugya. The Gemara is going to answer, no, Rebbe Kiva knows that you go l'chumra. But he said l'kula because he was just trying to be nice to his Rebbe Eliezer. He wanted to wake him up and remind him something. but he didn't in fact believe in what he was saying. He made up a kal chomer that didn't even make sense to himself. It was just to get his Rebbe to remember something. So says the Gemara like this. You don't do the kula. The case is where a person touched a dead person, let's say, became tamei meis, and he wants to bring a carbon pesach. He wants to become tar. So what's the process? You have to get sprinkled by the paraduma water on the third day, 7 sprinkles, and on the 7th day. But the problem is the 7th day falls out on Shabbos. And Erev Pesach is on Shabbos. Now what? If he doesn't get sprinkled, he's not going to be able to bring a carbon Pesach. But to sprinkle somebody on Shabbos is asur midrabanan. Why? Because you're fixing him. Before he's tamei, and now he's tar. You're not allowed to fix on Shabbos. Misak mana. So this is the rabbanan. The Pesach, the pligi Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Kiva. They had a machlokes, a Rebbe in his Talmud. Rebbe Kiva says the Rebbe Eliezer saw the chumrah become a chayiv le'legavra. Rebbe Eliezer says let's be machmer. It's an interesting lashon. Let's do chumrah. Let's say you must bring a carbon Pesach. That's the chumrah. So Mela, you should do hazah on Shabbos. Rebbe Kiva lekula upatar. Rebbe Kiva says no. Let's not say he doesn't have to bring a carbon Pesach. So therefore, do not do hazah on Shabbos. Because parach Rebbe Kiva lekula. You see, Rebbe Kiva uses a kal chomer in the kula fashion, not in the chumrah. So you see that if you have 2 ways to do it, you do it with the kula. This nan, hey Rebbe Kiva answered, chiluf. Let's do the opposite. To sprinkle somebody is a issur d'Rabbanan. Shvus, issur d'Rabbanan, it doesn't push off Shabbos, shchita. Shidaraisa, like Kolchim. So to shecht an animal on Shabbos, which is the issur d'Raisa of Atal's Neshama. What's the lashon? I forgot the lashon. Hopefully it'll come to me. What Neshama? You know what I'm talking about. So certainly you shouldn't be able to do shchita on Shabbos, which is this is the Reisa. Not a tzas Neshama. Tzas Neshama. Okay. Shchita is the Reisa. Says Gemara, Hasam. No, you don't understand what happened. You're right. Rebbe Kiva said the kula instead of the chumrah. But what happened was also Rebbe Eliezer Gamrei. Rebbe Eliezer is the one that taught him this halacha. V'yakeli Talmudah, and Rebbe Eliezer forgot. V'also Rebbe Kiva lat kurei, and Rebbe Kiva came to remind him. Now Rebbe Kiva knew very well that on Shabbos you do shecht. Why? Because it says b'moyadoi. Sorry. Yeah, that on Shabbos you should do hazah, b'moyadoi. That you shouldn't allow the guy to bring a carbon, even on Shabbos, even if it has to do with the Chil Shabbos. But Rebbe Kiva just wanted to remind Rebbe Eliezer in a gentle way. And he said, Rebbe, al tachpireinu shasadin. So Rashi says there, a terrible thing happened there. Terrible. But it's mamash a kiss from Hashem. So it says Rashi as follows. So Rebbe Kiva told him this svara. Kos Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer got mad at him. B'amar lo Akiva, b'shchita shiftani. Since you bring me a raya from shchita, listen to this lashon. It's incredible. To Rebbe Kiva, to Gol Adar. B'shchita te'eh misascha. He cursed him. You shall die by the knife. Shchita. That's mamish Tisha B'av. The Asar Arugei Malchus. In fact, Rebbe Kiva died like that, even though he davened that he should die al Kiddush Hashem, but his Rebbe gave him such a curse. In other words, think about what happened there. He was trying to be edel, he was trying to be gentle, and not to tell his Rebbe, hey, you told us in shir like this and like that. So he said a kavachoymer, it was gonna, jog his memory a little bit. He got punished for that. But when Rebbe Kiva, so Rebbe Kiva said, don't be whatever the lashon is, tachperein mishas din, zeh shanu chalukim v'donim zeh keneged zeh ad echachet dvarach rishonim. V'zuchar, remember, he tells him, Matani, this is what you taught me, hazah shvos, that hazah is the Rabbanon, by Domer Lei, Rebbe al tachperein mishas din, kach mekubel al minchos, says the Gemara, hazah shvos. You taught this to me. Rabboisai, have a wonderful day. I hope you had a meaningful Tisha B'Av, and I hope we have a meaningful Tisha B'Av. For all the 30 that are now on YouTube, you should koyach for the chizuk. You should have a meaningful Tisha B'Av, and we shouldn't have another one. This should be the last one. Just as a side note, last year, Erev Tisha B'Av, I had medical issues because of the 4 shiurim, I guess. I don't know. I was under a lot of stress and duress, and I have to say that this year it's a lot calmer, a lot better. You should see Mashiach b'meheira. Thank you.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.